everyone, to the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast. This is Matt in Minnesota.
And Chris in South London.
Welcome to our June podcast.
Yay!
How's it going, Chris?
It's going well. It's a grey holiday weekend here in London. But people of London will know holiday weekends. The weather just tends to deteriorate, and yes, so it's a wet holiday Monday.
Not too dissimilar here in Minnesota. It's kind of cold and dreary, so it's
Yes.
perfect podcast and book weather, I think.
Yes, and it's that rarity in which the American and British kind of holiday weekend schedules collide. We are not celebrating Memorial Day. We're just celebrating late May bank holiday.
Wonderful.
It's the official name, but yes. There are no parades or anything, alas.
Yeah, slightly different meaning, I think.
Yes.
So this month, Chris, was your pick, and I believe it was The Face of the Enemy by David McIntee.
Yes.
At least I hope so. I hope I read the right book.
Yes. David A. McIntee. Did he always use the A? I'm trying to think. But anyway, sorry, this is a rather tedious rabbit hole for me to descend so early on. But yeah.
Chris, what do you have for show and tell this month?
So I was just thinking, the show itself. We've been back now for a number of weeks, and I think it's rather good. I'm not going to go into too many spoilers because I know that some of our listeners are kind of wanting to wait until the entire season is done before watching it. Hi, Sean. I think that Capaldi's going out on a high. I really do. And I do think it is amusing as well how many kind of elements from the books that we've been covering seem to be kind of popping up or kind of like, I wouldn't say being borrowed, but there are certainly aspects that you're kind of seeing in the TV series. Sort of without going into any spoilers, the pyramid is, we have a pyramid appearing in the TV series, and that's kind of similar to what happens. We have a pyramid randomly appearing in one of the books we've read, Big Bang Generation. It's great. It's wonderful, and also I would say that the characterization of kind of Bill has been brilliant, and Nardol's been fun, and it's also good. It's just such a shame that this is the kind of like the first and only season of this TARDIS group.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I think it is a shame that we only get the one season, but I'm hoping that Big Finish will be there to fill in quite a few of the gaps at some point in the future, because you're right. I think the chemistry they've got, and it seems like it always takes 2 or 3 years, to find that for each Doctor. I think it's the rare exception, like, Liz Sladen worked better with Tom Baker than I thought she did with John Pertwee. But one of the things I've really enjoyed about this season too, and I'm one episode behind you in terms of where we're at. I haven't seen the Pyramid episode yet, but I know it's coming. Is I really have enjoyed how much this series is kind of linked to get together, almost in that 1960s sort of way, where you go from story to story and you have this through thread that's, it's there if you want to pick up on it, but it's also it's nice that it feels more like a cohesive ongoing narrative, I guess.
Yeah.
Which I've enjoyed.
Yeah, I would agree. I remember somebody saying, a friend of mine at the time, Christopher Eccleston's sort of season. So just after it being announced that Eccleston departed, it was like falling in love with someone at school and then realizing that person was leaving. It feels a bit like that. It's just like, oh. I mean, not that I haven't enjoyed Capaldi's other seasons, but it's just so good, and he looks like he's having a blast as well.
I feel like his character's progressed too quite a bit, where he that 70 years or so on Earth, and then the 20 or 30 years he's spent with River. So even though he's forgotten a lot of what Clara taught him, maybe not so much emotionally, but in his head sort of thing, it feels to me like this is the Doctor. You know how Colin Baker talked about how he always had like a 7-year plan and
Yeah.
he wanted, layers of a cake sort of thing. I feel like
Yes.
we've gotten that with Capaldi, like because you look at how he started so gruff, and then just the progression along that spectrum has been really really well done, I think.
Yeah, well, in many ways, Capaldi is kind of Colin Baker done right, and with the assistance of very good writers. Because I would say that the Colin Baker era possibly was underserved by its scripts,
Yeah.
should we say. But which reminds me, there's a bizarre little thing at the back of the paperback version of Face of the Enemy. Sort of talks about kind of video releases, if you remember those, children, and sort of talks about sort of time lash as being something that you might enjoy. And I was like, oh, please do not put the people that have suddenly stumbled across the TV series due to the Paul McGann movie and started reading the books. Don't put them in the direction of Time Lash. We don't want them to leave. Right, I think that's enough rambling from me. What exciting things do you have from the show and tell?
For me, I just really a little bit of a recap about the convention. So last month we had a console room in Minneapolis, the one that Peter Davison skipped to stay down in Texas with Sean for. But
it's the barbecue, I'm sure. It's the barbecue.
yeah, but it was fun. It was very pleasant, kind of low key, just about the right size. I'd say about 500 people or so. Janet Fielding and Gary Russell were the guests of honor, along with Chris Jones and Kathy Sullivan, who's done some Big Finish work. Janet, kind of funny story, she was coming into town from Chicago, and Thursday evening at the guest of honor reception, she sat opposite of me at one of the tables, and she looked around the table and she said, "I think I'm going to be sick." And she got up. Oh, and she got up and left. She turns out she got food poisoning when she was in Chicago, so she was recovering from that throughout most of the weekend. But she did at one point. She did talk quite a bit about the Spirit of Light convention, which was back in November of 1983, and that was the U.S. equivalent of the 20th anniversary of Longleat, which was earlier that year in May, and it also, I think, predates Gallifrey 1 by about 5 years. And it took place during the shooting of Caves of Androzani, so in between the location filming for that story, the entire cast basically jetted off to Chicago, and before the studio sessions, and yeah. I suspect that was where JNT shored up some of the regeneration cameos that happened in the studio sessions, because a lot of companions, all the living doctors were there. But one of the stories Janet told was about that weekend was that her and Lala Ward had rented a stretch limousine, which was a novelty at the time.
Yes.
On the Monday after the convention. And I might be getting this mixed up, but I believe it was Lala that told Janet this, but although it might have also been another close friend of Janet's that was friends with Douglas Adams. But I think it was Lala. Lala had told her what 42 meant in the Douglas Adams books. So right. Janet told the audience, so it's out there now, I guess. Have you heard this before? Like what?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. No.
So the sound, it's the answer. So it's in the sound of the words. So if you repeat 42 kind of over and over again, you get fortitude.
Ah.
So what is the answer that gets you through life, the universe, and everything?
Fortitude.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so that made up for her being
yeah. Oh, no,
sick
that's
at
lovely.
dinner. Yeah.
That's lovely. Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's really nice.
And then a couple of things from that I picked up from Gary Russell. He mentioned that he clarified the record on Nicholas Courtney and the involvement in Sarah Jane Adventures. He walked that back a bit, and he said that it was really he had Nick's contact info, but that the idea was probably Russell or Julie's. But then he went on to say that he was much more instrumental in getting Katie Manning to appear in the Matt Smith episode.
Mm.
And then he also talked about how he prefers writing for past Doctors. He felt there was too much collaboration necessary when having to move the needle forward on writing New Adventures or the Eighth Doctor range. So he only ever wrote one book for each of the ranges in the New Adventures style. So Legacy for the 7th, Placebo Effect for the 8th, and then Big Bang Generation for the current crop. That I found was kind of interesting. He also mentioned he was self-taught, and that he always writes the ending of his book first, then the beginning, then specific scenes, then a new beginning, so the old beginning becomes chapter 4. And then he kind of writes the connective tissue within. And then he also talked about how he follows the chart from the Making of Doctor Who book.
Yes.
From the 70s.
Yeah, the Malcolm Hulk.
Kind of the flow of a story. He tries to replicate that for his prose work, but he said it doesn't work for audio. And I guess I felt a little bit justified in my rating for Big Bang Generation, because it turns out he wrote that in 4 days.
Oh, right.
After flying back from Australia, he locked himself in a London hotel room because Justin Richards was after him. So.
Well, I was going to say, because if the fourth scene was originally the beginning, then that would also answer quite a few things. That's the interesting structure of that book, and how possibly it doesn't necessarily all fit together. But yeah, okay.
So that's my little convention report.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
So let's talk about David Is it McIntee?
McIntee, I think.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Did you find that David McIntee had put some notes up about Face of the Enemy, kind of like his own annotations?
I did not.
So Mr. McIntee started sort of with the New Adventures and wrote White Darkness, First Frontier, I'm going from memory here, Sanctuary, there were others as well, and I can't remember them off the top of my head. He also wrote Missing Adventures, including the Shadow of Weng Chiang, The Dark Path, which may or may not be relevant to this book, as the Dark Path features the Master. And that's, I think, that the Master is one of his interests. I would say in the kind of the world of Doctor Who. I would also guess that he's probably quite a big of a James Bond fan, I'd imagine.
Yeah. And I think he's also written some Star Trek books too.
Yes, yeah, he has. He's written. I think he wrote a kind of like a Voyager continuity guide thing, or something like that. And I know he has definitely written novels in the Star Trek universe. The only Star Trek novels I've ever read have been by Peter David. So I don't know about David McIntee's work. Are you familiar with his work outside of the world of the TARDIS?
Not really, no. Yeah, I had fourth book of his. I think I've read White Darkness and First Frontier, and then just in this past month, before I read Face of the Enemy, I went back and read The Dark Path too, just to get that kind of
get out of the way.
get that one read, and I went back and re-listened to the Classic Doctor Who Book Club podcast review of that one, which I think was like episode 11 or 12 that they did. And that was fun too. But yeah, I'm glad I did, because there are certain elements of that come through into this book too.
Without wanting to kind of get too ahead, if you've not read The Dark Path, I don't think it'll necessarily hold you back. It's not too tightly tied in. There are references to things, but I don't think it certainly isn't impenetrable.
Agree 100%. I'd say it's like kind of like Gridlock and the Makra Terror, in that if you can watch one without having to have experienced the other one. So
yeah.
And I guess the kind of the structure of the book, there's 21 chapters, there's an author's note, and then there's also a prologue and an epilogue. Did you go back and watch? I ended up pulling up on YouTube just the opening and closing bits of Curse of Peladon.
Yes, yeah, certainly the opening parts, and because it does tie in quite nicely. But before we get started with the plot, I'd just like to say there's something odd or curious about the dedication, where he kind of says at the start that he's not dedicating this book to anybody because he's learned the lesson last time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so like, oh, okay, that sounds a bit dark.
Because his book just before this one was The Dark Path, and in that one he wrote about how he thought this would be his last Doctor Who book ever because the range was ending.
Yes.
And yeah, they were losing the license and all of that. But let me grab it real quick because I want to see who he dedicated that to.
Yes.
All right, let's see. Oh, he dedicated it to Jill, the Time Meddler, fondly. Thank you for always being there for me.
Oh.
So I wonder if Jill broke up with him.
Yes. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I kind of got that vibe that there may have been some kind of sadness. I hope he's not listening to this because this might be bringing us all back. Sorry.
Well, we should say he also dedicated it to Judith Proctor, who I think was like a work supervisor or something, because he said, "Now you know why the first casualty was so late." So.
Oh, okay.
So it could be something else entirely. Yes. Who knows?
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, that was quite curious. But yeah, his author's note from that earlier book kind of. He laments, the ending of the range and all of that, and then at the beginning of this one, he talks about, I got some details of the author arrangement wrong, or those were cleared up for me by BBC Books, so now I'm on board. So.
Yeah, because it was interesting that there were quite a few authors who did kind of like carry through. In fact, sort of most of the recurring authors from the New Adventures range did. Paul Cornell, Kate Orman. So there wasn't a kind of like a general downing of tools, even though people would only be able to kind of introduce into the BBC universe elements that they themselves had created in the New Adventures. Mm-hmm. There was possibly kind of like, a more of a gentle meshing than you might have expected.
Yeah, and certainly elements that he even refers to this as the third in his master triptych, which I would guess that the other two would probably be First Frontier and Dark Path, certainly.
Yes.
Although First Frontier, I think that was the or later retcon to be the master who appears just briefly at the beginning of the TV movie. I forget the actor's name.
But
Tipple or something.
Tipple, something like that. But yeah, who's killed by the Smurfs, pretending to be Daleks. And that master is said to look like Basil Rathbone, who was Sherlock Holmes in the 30s. Mm-hmm. That's minor spoiler. I gave up on First Frontier, so it wasn't until a year or so kind of afterwards that I learnt that the Master appeared in it, because it's not on the back. But I mean, the White Darkness novel, there's a character in that I was expecting to be the Master. I mean, he's been kind of toying with putting the Master or kind of Master-esque figures in his books. Cool. Anyway, shall we get started with talking about the novel?
Sure. So I guess it opens up in the prologue with the Third Doctor and Jo getting into the TARDIS, and they're off to Peladon. Jo has a date with Mike Yates, and she wants to get back in time, but suffice it to say, they don't return as soon as they left, and and they don't show up again until the epilogue. So really, this is a Dr. Light episode.
It is, before that was a thing. And also the appearance, because Jo talks about how she's kind of going off on a date with Mike, you say, to go see a Woody Allen film, because Mike knows how to treat someone. I assume this was kind of like a little bit of a gag, because in later books it's made very clear that Mike is either bi or gay, and in fact, I think it's implied he settles down with Sergeant Osgood.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
Huh. Yeah, I was really surprised. Suffice it to say, if there's ever been a unit character mentioned in any capacity, they're referenced in this book somewhere.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. Yes, pretty
it's
much.
it's
Yeah.
very continuity heavy in
Yeah.
that respect.
Yes.
Lots of
You can
little
play unit bingo.
yeah.
You really can.
But I was really surprised to see Osgood throughout the book. He had, and this would be the Osgood that we know, who may or may not be a Zygon. Um,
Yeah, the
yep, the
father of.
father. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. Because apparently in the comics they've started portraying Osgood as having oh, my mind's blanking, as
An inhaler.
inhaler. That's the phrase. Yeah, and in the Third Doctor comics, and so thereby kind of implying a lineage or some kind of family connection. But, I mean, Osgood's not that common a surname, so it might well be that he's a relation in some capacity.
Yeah, even the two Jimmies from the pre Third Doctor days, I think, get a mention that they're in town visiting, and I think those were some of the lieutenants that were in Lethbridge Stewart's like earliest appearances with
Yeah.
with Troughton. So you get name checks all over the place.
Yes.
So while they're away,
Mhm.
there is a plane, I guess, that comes through some sort of distortion. It appears out of nowhere and crashes.
And it does it in airspace I can see from my window. Um,
Oh,
yes, so I can see the airspace over Clapham as we speak, and it's very cloudy. Yes, I found it quite amusing.
presumably, I mean, very close to central London, so that would cause somewhat of a.
It would have caused a bit of a panic, yeah. Clapham does have quite a large park area called Clapham Common, so maybe people might have thought that it could have crash landed there. But yeah, it's a little bit east-ish of Heathrow and whatnot. There's lots of real-life place names, like West Drayton, which is where the RAF controller is speaking to this plane. That's real, and that's the kind of RAF base that's kind of vaguely near Heathrow.
This plane crashes, and there's all sorts of debris everywhere, and there's a someone's discovered inside the plane.
Yes, yeah, and it's and surprisingly enough, it doesn't appear to be the pilot. It appears to be an MP, a dead body of an MP who the brigadier had been speaking to just kind of earlier on that day.
So immediately my mind goes to like, is it Zygons? Is it the Kralls? Is there some sort of like invasion going on, like,
Yes.
or Autons? It's like, what's happening here? We've got duplicates.
You'd have thought that UNIT would have kind of sorted this stuff out, because they seem to have duplicates every now and again. They should have some kind of like cast iron way of dealing with this kind of monarch. It's just a problem that seems to kind of affect 70s or is it 80s Britain. Yeah, having duplicates on the place.
We should mention too that while this is set during Curse of Peladon, it is kind of ambiguous as to when it's set. It's not really pinned down to a specific time. It feels very 70s for sure, but I don't know that we ever get like specific dates.
No, we don't. I mean, I think he does keep it kind of deliberately vague, which I think is probably the best way to do with UNIT. I think, to be honest, because otherwise it's just going to kind of annoy the easily annoyed.
Yeah. So while this plane is crashing, kind of simultaneously across town, you have this big. It's like a bank heist going on.
Yes.
Where there's a lot of carnage, a lot of shooting, and you get the impression that from kind of the narrative and the thoughts of the guards that they're not entirely on the level. Like this isn't a straightforward bank heist, but it's more that the security that's being employed by the bank is more of like the kind of the goon squad sort of type of person coming in who's very much like a heavy, like in a I kept getting flashes of like Life on Mars and those 70s cop shows. And
yes, this is definitely where we're going, because there was a 70s TV show called The Sweeney, which Life on Mars to an extent is a riff on. And it just basically feels like an episode of that, which is not a bad thing. It also reminds me very much of the start of, or the early bits of Ambassadors of Death, where you have that kind of big old shootout in a warehouse. And this definitely feels like the kind of thing that Havoc, the Doctor Who stunt team at the time, could easily have done. But yeah, you have this kind of spectacular kind of violent stunts, and we're introduced to D.I. George Butcher. I know he's named after Chris.
I think it's Chris Boucher.
Boucher.
I think with his name too. I want to say was it in the McIntee's previous book, The Dark Path, he had named one of the characters after Derek Sherwin. So I'm wondering if like once per like every one of his books, if he has like a character named after, like if there's a Terrence Dix that shows up in something, or you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's funny that it's happened more than once.
He's the kind of like hard-boiled kind of cop, takes no prisoners, and sort of a bit of a heavy drinker, kind of punches first and asks questions later. And he's kind of come to the scene of this violent bank robbery. We see, is it 4 or 6 cops in the scene? And he's the only one who ends up surviving. And so one of the dead includes his nephew, who he's kind of got into the police force, kind of serves as a kind of like a motivating factor for him, kind of because he feels so kind of guilty about what's happened to Rob, his nephew.
Very sad that the detective's nephew, who is one of the officers responding to the scene, ends up getting shot and killed. And it turns out that they were after very specific things in the safe deposit box vaults. So not necessarily, like, I guess there's reference to that, like, oh, they left a Fabergé egg, but they were targeting very specific numbered boxes.
It's kind of interesting how he brings to life some of the characters, like the security guards. You get a real sense of the personality of kind of like one of them, who seems to be a very unsavory fellow with, shall we say, with kind of various personal relations with young women, and he's kind of really vividly and unpleasantly brought to life and then dispensed of 2 pages later. One thing I would say about McIntee's writing is that in some of his earlier books, he would kind of get obsessed with detail and kind of bringing in all the proper words for various different kind of technologies, like particularly for historical detail, with things like introducing various swords by their proper name, but not necessarily explaining it so well. Whereas maybe because I am just kind of, because it's a more recognizable setting, at least to me, that I didn't find it was kind of like bogged down in detail as much as some of his earlier stuff. Thinking particularly of kind of like White Darkness and from what I remember of Sanctuary.
Yeah, White Darkness especially was very descriptive, and I wonder if he had pulled in some of like research he had done about Haiti as part of another project maybe or something.
Yeah. And maybe it might be just because I know these places that quite a bit of this is set in. I'm like, oh yeah, okay.
Back to Unit,
yes.
Because the doctor's out of town and they had this plane crash, they need to find a different scientific advisor to come in and talk about it. And they mention, bringing Liz Shaw back, and I liked the we can't bring her back again because she helped us with that business with the glass house.
Yes.
Which I forget which book that was.
Scales and Justice, I believe.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, and so she's out on a lecture tour with Carl Sagan, which must have been lovely. So yeah, I thought that was quite cool. Kind of like a celebrity non-cameo. So the brig contacts the RAE and is put in contact with one Ian Chesterton, who you will remember. And interestingly, Ian Chesterton is based at RAE Farnborough, which is next to where I used to live. That was a rather strange kind of like twist that I used to live in the area that Ian and Barbara presumably live in the book. Yeah.
I have to say I was so excited when Ian and Barbara show up in I think it was like chapter 3, because for me it really made up for the Doctor not being in the story to get them to come back. And they're married now, which is really interesting, and they have a child together.
Yes.
Named...
Who goes on to reappear.
Oh.
Yes, yeah. So so their son Johnny goes on to become a kind of like a rock starry figure known as Johnny Chess, and he ends up marrying Tegan.
That's
he appears in the background in a few different books. I think primarily in Paul Cornell books.
Huh. Wow, I didn't connect those two things, because I vaguely remember Johnny Chess in a few of the new adventures I read, just kind of punk concerts and that sort of thing.
Yes.
But wow, no, I didn't. That's interesting.
Yes. So Ian and Barbara are Tegan's future in-laws, hey ho.
Speaking of Tegan, did you ever get like flashes to Time Flight with this whole plane? And I think like at one point later on in the story, the Master mentions like, oh, I think I can improve on that sort of. Like I almost wonder if this is like a Time Flight origin story where the Master gets the idea for that.
Yes, that wonderful story, the highlight of the Davison era. I wasn't until we started talking about kind of Heathrow. They were like, oh yeah, no, it's Time Flight done right.
So Ian and Barbara's coming along, decide to assist Unit basically as attaches from the Air Force, right?
Do they say at this point that they know the Doctor? I can't quite remember, because like the Brigadier does realise that there is a connection.
I was wondering how long they were going to keep that going, but I think relatively soon after they're introduced, they realize that the Doctor's the same Doctor, and they talk about the TARDIS, and I think throughout they're thinking that it's the William Hartnell Doctor that's helping Unit, because I don't think that they know about the concept of regeneration at all.
No.
But they do realize they're all friends with the Doctor.
Yeah.
Ian kind of comes to the realization that the material from the aircraft is radioactive, and we get someone showing up very quickly who wants to dismantle the scene and haul away all the evidence. So.
As you tend to get in kind of Unit stories, you have the man from the Ministry, or in this case, the Minister, appearing and just generally being sort of very difficult and not at all suspicious.
So they end up carting away the pieces of the plane. They save a piece, and while that's going on, we're kind of cutting back and forth between that storyline and this bank robbery, which also comes to the attention of Unit.
I'm trying to remember how they get into the bank robbery, because I know that
I think it was because of the Master's
because he owns some of the safe deposit box type thing, and he's kind of going by the name of kind of Mr. Magister here, still, despite having kind of got arrested at the end of the day month. And so he has a kind of like a criminal lawyer called Ross Grant, who is he's more a criminal than a lawyer, I think it's fair to say. He's this guy. He's a bit of a kind of he's a bit of a heavy, isn't he? Really.
Yeah, and no relation to Joe Grant either. That at first I thought that's where they were going with the same.
Yeah, I did wonder that
last name.
does seem a bit odd, but
Yeah.
then again, I think Grant is more of a common surname than, say, Osgood.
You get quite a few scenes of detective work, following people, that sort of thing, and eventually the detective who's investigating this and kind of doing it on the side because his nephew
Because
was
he's in a
killed.
70s cop show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And because his nephew was killed, you have that conflict of interest thing. So he's
Yeah.
kind of doing
He
it.
gets taken off the case, and he gets the full Cagney and Lacey kind of treatment.
And he eventually figures out like the group that carried out the attack on the bank was a Scottish group. So he's kind of following that trail and kind of taking it where it leads him.
And the master is also he's got the lawyer Ross Grant getting his own subordinates to kind of investigate what's happening.
I should say the master also has an accountant.
Yes, yes, he does.
Mariana Kyle, and or Marianne Kyle is her name, and I couldn't help it, but with the last name Kyle, I just kept picturing like Selena Kyle from
Yes.
DC Comics in my head in terms of the character. But
well, we first see her in the bank raid, where she's kind of dressed in. I think she's dressed in a cat suit or something. I mean, she's certainly kind of dressed in kind of sort of like full on burglary gear. And she's got almost like a Diana Rigg kind of vibe going. If you're familiar with the TV series The Avengers, we'll keep an eye on her, as she'll keep on reappearing.
Back at Unit, Barbara gets assigned to go interview someone who was involved in the plane appearing, and there was like a UFO sighted, so they're thinking that it might be UFO related. So she's trying to do some investigation and follow up on those leads, and
because she's going to speak to the MP. So the MP whose body has been found, but he is still alive. And so the Brigadier has decided that, of all people, Barbara is a good person to go and have a gentle word. And but she kind of goes in to see him just after he's had a visit from Marianne Kyle. And so he himself has ended up dead. And Barbara is kind of all quite kind of shocked. I mean, one of the things, this book's quite a good character piece about Ian and Barbara. And also, I think it's fair to say, if you have any interest in reading this book, if you're enjoying what we're saying so far in our own rambly way, I think we are going to spoil this. There's no easy way to get around it. And so do please make sure you kind of go and read it, because I think it's quite twisty, it's quite turny, and it's quite fun. Yeah, about Barbara. So she's you do kind of you do see how traumatic TARDIS travel would have been for them both, their various adventures and everything, because quite often Ian and Barbara are kind of reflecting upon their various near-death experiences with the Doctor and kind of like radiation and all manner of other unpleasantness that they've encountered, as well as kind of like the fun times. And so you kind of saw possibly a bit more depth to their characters than I'd seen in, to be frank, in some of the the past / missing Doctor adventures I've read featuring the two of them. I think they kind of come across quite well as kind of actual people. But anyway, sorry, I digress.
No, I think that's a great point. I think he gets the characterization of those characters in particular down really well. I almost wish he would have done a little bit more with the Brigadier in terms of characterization. We get a few interesting moments with him, and including mention of Kate, his daughter.
Yes,
which is cool. Yeah, I felt this, especially with Ian and Barbara. McIntee really fleshed them out in terms of their motivations.
We've had the murder of the MP, and so D.I. Butcher, or however we're pronouncing it, has been assigned to the case because that's nothing to do with the murder of his nephew, and the Brigadier kind of gets Barbara to kind of to help him out, because he can't kind of like divulge too much because of kind of national security. and whatnot.
And we also get the Brigadier visiting the Master right around this point, just to ask him for help, because I think they realize that, with a potential UFO involved, that they could be dealing with off-world invaders, and they want to get his consultation while the doctor's away. So they visit him. This is where we have our dramatic reading for the month, courtesy of you, Chris, right?
Yes, indeed. This is all a bit timey-wimey, this episode, so we'll see how my recording has gone. There's an intercom next to the door in case of need, Conran reminded the Brigadier. You know the drill. With that, he stood back and let the visitors enter. The Master's prison was more like a hotel's luxury suite, complete with comfortable furniture, TV, stereo, bookshelves, even a drinks cabinet. Then he remembered the secure accommodation here had been intended for protective custody of valuable defectors. Presumably Fortress Island would be more fitting when its refurbishment was complete. The Master was waiting for them, having been notified of the visit by Conran. "My Brigadier," he began warmly, "I hardly expected you to visit me in my present circumstances, but you're very welcome, of course, and Captain Yates and—" He stopped at Chesterton. "I don't believe I've had the pleasure." "Ian Chesterton. I'm pleased to meet you. Something of inevitability, since I have so few visitors at all." Turned back to the Brigadier. "But—" The Master looked vaguely puzzled for a moment. "Where is the Doctor? Hasn't he come along for a little gloat?" "The Doctor is busy," Lethbridge Stewart answered, and could see that the Master didn't really believe him. "Well, in that case, I shall make do." The Master gestured to the chairs and settee. "Please make yourselves comfortable." "I prefer to stand, if it's all the same to you," Lethbridge Stewart said firmly. He didn't come here for the Master to play mother to them. Out of the corner of his eye, he could see Yates start to move to a chair, then stop in deference to his superior's ideals. "This isn't a social call, Mr. Tuppence." Somehow, I didn't think it would be. He wasn't making things any easier, the Brigadier thought. This was embarrassing enough as it was. "As a matter of fact, we came to—" Damn, but he didn't really want to say this. "Well, to ask for your help." The Master was somewhat taken aback. "My help? After imprisoning me? You have a rather strange sense of humour, Brigadier." "Then consider it community service. Reparations for the trouble you've caused. I'm sure we can arrange some sort of—" He looks round the plush apartment. "Privileges in return." The Master was clearly sceptical, and Lethbridge Stewart could hardly blame him. "Very well, Brigadier. What kind of help?" The Master affected a sigh. "We'd like access to your TARDIS." The Master blinked, then spread his hands. "But of course. Give me my freedom and I'll give you all the help you need." "You know I can't do that," Lethbridge Stewart said wearily. "Naturally. No more than I could give you my TARDIS." While Lethbridge Stewart hit back the reply he was about to make, Ian broke in. "All we need is some equipment that will allow us to test whether some samples we have in the lab have travelled in time." The Master gave him a sideway glance. "Such equipment is standard fitting in every TARDIS. Why not simply use the Doctor's?" Lethbridge Stewart tried to think of a reasonable reply. Clearly took too long, and a slow smile spread across the Master's features. "You can't, can you? That's why he isn't here. Somehow he's got that old crock of his working again that has left the planet." Lethbridge Stewart thought about lying, but knew the conversation had gone beyond the point where that would work. He nodded. The Master laughed. "So that's it. Other helpers fail, comforts flee, and you come to me." Lethbridge Stewart gritted his teeth. The Master was enjoying this, and would no doubt milk the situation for all it was worth. "Why should I help you, Brigadier? Why help my enemy?" "Why not?" Lethbridge Stewart had no other answer to give, except perhaps, "The Doctor says that even now you're still a scientist. Aren't you curious?" The Master relented slightly. You've hit upon my one uncorrupted vice." "Yeah, All right, I'm curious. Tell me exactly what your problem is, and I'll consider it.
So when Brigadier went to the master basically kind of refused to help them really.
Yes.
So they leave kind of dejected and
So the brigadier is also he's kind of very suspicious of the minister that was wanting that plane to be scrapped, and so he's got one of his lieutenants, Lieutenant Beresford, who I don't remember from the TV series. Maybe he is a kind of an existing TV unit character, but Beresford is kind of sort of watching Carswell and then finds him kind of meeting up with some kind of underworld figures in Trafalgar Square. I don't know, that doesn't seem to be like the kind of place where you'd hang out with me, apart from in a TV series. In a TV series, that's where, it's always prominent landmarks. Yeah, because like in real life, apparently in the 70s, sort of spies and stuff were quite often meeting in supermarkets around here, which is nice. That must have been a nice time to be living in this area. Anyway, so Soviet skullduggery over by the fruit and veg. Anyway, they're kind of arranging for more of Kyle's people to be kind of brought over. That we're starting to hear there's some kind of connections with the Royal Navy's submarine base up in Faslane, which is up in Scotland. Yeah, we do get a few Scottish references in this book.
that does help me because geography wise I was kind of lost.
Yeah, yeah.
At that point, they learn that the recording of the plane was faked, and that the transmission had bits of Big Ben chimes in the background.
That just sounds inept, doesn't it?
Yeah,
You'd have thought that if you're kind of making a transmission, you'd kind of, I don't know. It sounds like the kind of thing that would happen in Magnum PI, that you suddenly hear a kind of like a bell in the background and go, oh, they must be down at the harbour.
I wonder if it was a
Deliberate.
just yeah, like an homage to.
Yes.
Wasn't there a an episode of The Prisoner where that was like the reveal that the chimes of Big Ben were what
Yes. God, I think there
what
is
the
one. There is one called The
yeah
Chimes of Big Ben, isn't there?
yeah I think that it might have been a reference to
Yeah,
that, but
yeah, could well be. But also, it's a kind of reference to kind of like 70s cop shows where this kind of thing happened quite a bit.
the detective goes up. He hears about the Scottish gang that was hired by for the bank robbery, and also the Scottish submarine base.
Yes.
So he goes up there to investigate.
Yeah.
He gets discovered on the base, and as he's fleeing, he gets struck and killed by a motorist just randomly on the freeway.
Yes.
Or the highway, motorway. I guess.
Motorway.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the term.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
and like U.S. term, UK term. He gets struck by the motorway, and someone just happens to wander by and find him.
Yes, and that someone is described as kind of square-jawed and sort of it's Harry Sullivan, and which is a nice, pleasant surprise. But I didn't recognise him from the description, but I recognise him from the dialogue because he doesn't quite say, "Oh, hang on there, Albeen," but it's not far off it. So I was like, "Oh, that's got," because he talks about, "Oh, I'm a naval surgeon." Like, that's got to be Harry. Yeah, we get a at this point future companion of the Doctor, Rocky, up in this story. The detective inspector at this point he's dying, and his last words are to kind of get word to Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was quite a brilliant twist because I was kind of expecting him to kind of be more of a character in the novel, but I guess it would have just been getting it going to be a little bit ridiculous, him kind of being taken off the case and finding another thread to link him in, and to just, it's like, no, let's just take him off the table and bring in Harry. It was quite good, even if it was a bit brutal.
I'm not a huge fan of Harry Sullivan. I guess the character. I always thought he was a bit superfluous, in his season.
Yeah.
I do like the dynamic he brings, but he's so rooted in that kind of old boy mentality that he just was never a favorite of mine. However, I like him a lot better after reading this book.
Yeah, he's a proto Rory
Yeah.
in the TV series, but here he kind of feels more of more his own man. But yeah, and he's also in one of my favourite bits of that first season of Tom Baker. In fact, the only good bit of Revenge of the Cybermen, when the Fourth Doctor sort of yells, "Harry Sullivan's an imbecile." What's that effect? I like Harry. I have time for Harry.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we digress. So Marianne Kyle at this point decides to send one of her agents to kind of go and dispose of the Master, who is kind of he's still in his prison, and it then becomes quite apparent that the Master has hypnotized the entire prison staff, and he's just there because it's convenient for him to still be in the prison.
And there's kind of a spectacular, action sequence where the helicopter lands and start mowing down the guards who are all lined up there to greet the helicopter landing, and you have the Master basically exiting out of his tower, avoiding the firefight, kind of going and hopping in the helicopter, circling around behind, and taking off in it.
Yeah, it's very Mind of Evil. I can imagine sort of Tim Coombs directing this. It's a brilliant piece. As I said before, if you're enjoying this so far, stop listening to us. Read the book.
Oh, so he flies the helicopter to pay a visit to I want to say Selena Kyle, but it's Marianne Kyle. And
to his accountants,
which is who was had sent the crews after him to kidnap him in the first place.
Yes,
and she has knowledge too that he's a Time Lord.
Yes, because
I don't know if she knows what that means necessarily, but
I think she does. Because she definitely seems to kind of know from fairly early on that, or at least that the Master is alien. She definitely knows that. And also at this point, she's kind of. At this point, Ross Grant starts to kind of exit the scene. Doesn't she kill him at about this point?
Yeah, she's one of several people that she kind of kills that have been working for her. Yes. She's been kind of the mastermind behind all of this, and has hired the various gangs against each other.
Yes. What a surprise. People that the Master go into business with turn out to be just as evil and betray them. What a shock. That doesn't happen all of the time.
She also steals the Master's TARDIS, which at this point is disguised as, I think, a
Rolls Royce. Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't he driving around in a Rolls Royce at the start of the Mind of Evil?
Yeah. One thing to keep in mind too with this is, if you're at all familiar with the structure of where this fits in terms of Curse of Peladon, and where the Master is imprisoned at the start of the story, and his very next appearance, there's kind of a feeling that I got as reading this, that by the end of the story the toys have to be put back on their shelf in the same place that they were. So I always, even though the Master escapes prison, in the back of your mind, if you're familiar with this season, you kind of think by the end of the story he probably has to end up back in prison, or I think they even make reference to at one point in the story, where he escapes from is just a temporary cell, because they're preparing the island fortress that we get in the Sea Devils, I think.
Yes, which I think is the very next story chronologically. You also kind of get the feeling as well from the Brigadier's kind of dealings with the people running the prison that the Master kind of ends up escaping from, that Unit are just so weary of them, and that this is probably not the first kind of panic that Unit have had regarding kind of prison security there. If you knew of the Master, you would be very nervous and wary of him, because he is this kind of evil Cypriot criminal mastermind. Yes, of course, someone called Magister would be a Cypriot. Yes, okay.
The Master and Marianne Kyle, have that exchange, and then he escapes, and he eventually tracks. He's trying to get a better understanding of what's going on as well.
Yeah.
Because even though he could leave, the prison, he's not quite understanding what's all going on with this invasion plan, and it isn't something that he's behind. So he's trying to get to the bottom of it, and he ends up, I think, killing a few more people.
Yes.
But he eventually finds his way to unit headquarters in the doctor's laboratory, kind of going through his stuff. And
Yes. Yeah.
he comes across the devices that were used in Day of the Doctor,
Yeah.
which are not unlike the kind of the belts that they had in, what was the new series where they would jump, between Pete's world and Rise of the Cybermen,
Yeah.
the interdimensional belts, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
He takes one of those from Day of the Daleks, and he starts dismantling it or enhancing it, and building a device that'll help him figure out what's been going on, because Barbara suspects there's some sort of time travel involved because of the residue being not unlike that of primordial Earth.
Yes.
which is
Time
also
flight.
back to time flight.
Yeah.
At this point too, something very extraordinary happens with Barbara.
Well, because
That we should touch.
D.I. Butcher suddenly reappears, and he hasn't found anything up at Fastlane, but then I can't remember what he says, but it suddenly kind of like makes it abundantly clear that he's an imposter. He then kind of takes Barbara as a hostage, and they go on the run from Unit HQ, and there's a kind of big old kind of car chase. He crashes the car, kills a homeless woman who just happens to look a little bit like Barbara, and burns her body to make it seem as if Barbara has died.
Including, and this part I thought was a little, it kind of crossed the line for me in terms of like gruesomeness. That was, because you have the scene of him like tearing the wedding ring off Barbara's finger, and taking her shoes and putting them with the body, and it was very felt much more Torchwood than Doctor Who.
Yeah, it was a bit grim, and also kind of a little bit unnecessary. I mean, it would have been more realistic for him to have just killed Barbara, which I think would have been. I mean, I wouldn't have wanted to see that. Don't get me wrong, however, the fact that she's kind of apparently died now kind of serves as a motivation for Ian, and Ian. I mean, he's just devastated, and we then see this. It was quite chilling and shocking scene in which he's just kind of standing on a ledge at units, and he's just kind of considering just jumping, and he's kind of he's kind of making assessments as to how painful his death would be from this high up, and inadvertently it's the Master that saves him. And there's a rather, I don't know whether it justifies the whole kind of like Barbara is dead storyline, but there is a beautiful scene in which kind of like the Master kind of talks through his kind of basically kind of talks him through his emotions, and though it's made quite clear that the Master is doing this just because he feels that Lethbridge Stewart would not trust him at all if Ian dies in his vicinity. But yeah, it's quite a. I found that quite a powerful scene, but also it's kind of undercut by kind of like when Ian walks away and leaves the room, that the Master just kind of gives a look of disdain at kind of Ian's emotional state. I mean, it's so you kind of know he's not Mr. Nice Guy. He is just he's
using him for his, and you get a tie back to the previous novel McIntee wrote, to The Dark Path, where his companion, I think Aaliyah or Ilea, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but similar sort of circumstances where her death, or apparent death, it turns out she's revealed. Well, I won't spoil it in case listeners haven't heard it, but she's not dead, but she betrays the Master in some way, and it was that betrayal that kind of turned him from Koshei or Koshi
Mm.
into the master in that previous book, and you get some strong. Having read the two back to back, there's quite a few strong parallels in that scene. You're almost wondering if it's the master talking to Ian, or the master talking to himself in terms of working through
Yeah.
some of that guilt, and yeah, it's a really really great scene. And soon after, the master learns that Barbara's not in fact dead. There was an autopsy done on the body, and she's still alive. But he decides not to share that information with Ian.
Yeah, because he's just wanted to play him.
Yeah,
And Barbara has kind of she's kind of come around in a world where there's been some kind of natural disaster. Sees that people are kind of traveling through some kind of dimensional arch. She's now being kind of interrogated by Kyle, and who has kind of sent her to this organization called the Conclave for yet more interrogation. So,
and at that point, the master, he's so the submarine base up in
Scotland, yeah, Fastlane.
Scotland,
Yeah.
he's detecting like energy readings there, so they know that something's happening there, and I think that's when the brigadier also hears from Harry, letting him know that the real inspector the DI Boucher had died. So all roads really point to Scotland. So I think that's where everyone starts heading.
Yeah, and then Boucher's body disappears from the morgue. Harry gets in kind of like a fight sequence with various kind of naval staff in the morgue, who are clearly all under the pay or control of Kyle. Yeah, Harry manages to kind of get away and lets the brig know that there's some kind of bad stuff going down in Fastlane.
And then, well, that's happening too. I think it's Sergeant Benton, Captain Yates, and Ian. They all use the device that the master built to jump, to try and figure out where this invasion is coming from.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like in a dusty desert-like environment, and they see a space shuttle kind of pass overhead and land. So they're wondering what in the world's going on. Yes. It's kind of a weird sight to see, especially with, I think at the time, NASA was just testing the Enterprise prototype, the first space shuttle, so they weren't even really flying at this time. Yeah. So they're amazed that's happening.
They managed to kind of get back to Fastlane, and they they tell the Brigadier and the Master what's been happening, because also the Brigadier is refusing to let the Master kind of go across, because he's kind of like, yeah, no, I've got you under control here. Because the Master is like, oh, I'm an expert on time travel, surely I'll be best placed. Yeah, no, pal, you stay where you are. And the Brigadier kind of thinks that it rings a slight bell and asks for a file. Did he refer to it as the Eastchester incident? Is it Eastchester? And anyway, it's basically he's starting to think that it might be like what happened in Inferno.
and this is the kind of the big reveal of the whole book, which really caught me by surprise. Like I had no idea this was coming, and it happens about close to 80%, into the book, where you get this reveal that, this whole book is a sequel to Inferno. which was a huge surprise and shocking to me.
Well, I did say last time that this was a sequel to something, didn't I?
You did.
But not the sequel you were expecting.
No. We learn in short order that there's only one dimensional gateway in between the Inferno world and the Doctor's timeline, or the quote unquote real world, and that happens to be at that submarine base in Fastlane. That's where the arch is, and you had the plane that came through was really an attempt at crossing over in a different way, which didn't work, and that's why it crashed. And the guy on board who was the counterpart in this. That's where they aren't Zygons, they aren't Autons, they're really kind of fascist humans
Yes.
from this parallel mirror sort of world.
And Mirror gets a reference as well, because Benton talks about, isn't it like that Star Trek episode where they all kind of wear goatee beards, or words to that effect.
Or eye patches in this case.
Yes, yeah. And I don't know, I can't imagine Benton as someone that watches Star Trek. I'd have thought he'd be just more of a kind of like a football and rugby kind of guy. Hey ho.
It was really popular at the time, I think, especially in the early 70s, where you'd have I hear stories all the time about like college dorms, the one TV, tuned into Star Trek every day.
This is true, but also I don't know. I personally, I don't tend to watch too many things kind of set in the field of work that I work in, I guess, and Star Trek might be a little bit close to home to the kind of shenanigans that Benton has to put up with on a kind of a weekly basis. I don't know.
Oh yeah, that's very true.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, we get that big reveal that the Inferno Earth, they're trying to move the survivors over to, and not just this. I wouldn't say all survivors, really, just like the military elites, trying to replace them, and their counterparts don't necessarily always have the same sort of position. Like some of them are both military or government related, but like in the case of D.I. Boucher. His counterpart, I think, was in the military and not, like a peaceful police force, which makes sense given the different timelines and how that might play out. That's basically the plan is, that they're slowly but surely replacing everyone, and it's been discovered, and so it's up to the unit and the master to stop it.
Yes, yeah, and so the master kind of takes it upon himself to kind of. Trying to kind of get over there and kind of grab his TARDIS, and the Brigadier and Ian end up kind of like by accident coming along with him as well. So it's not quite at this point where they go to the conclave yet, is it? But it's not far off it. So, and the Master kind of ends up turning himself in to Kyle. And he's sort of saying that he's kind of come to assist her, and just to show his loyalty, he kind of basically gives her, to Brigadier and Ian, because he's a nasty piece of work, isn't he, the Master?
He also, I think, whispers to Ian that, or not to Ian, to the Brigadier, that he's going to. Oh no, I'm confusing something earlier.
I don't think you are. No, I think it's around because the Master makes it slightly clear to the brig that he's got some kind of other plan, and there's a gun in the Brigadier's cell.
Oh, that's right. Yep, he
traipses off to the moon.
Yeah, this is where it gets
Yes.
The introduction of the submarine base.
Yes.
All of a sudden, you have the Spy Who Loves Me going on.
Yeah.
And now we add Moonraker to the mix.
Yeah.
So the space shuttle that they saw earlier is one of a couple that Kyle and the others in the Conclave, which is like the remnants of the totalitarian kind of world order. They have a couple of space shuttles laying around that they've retrofitted with technology from Delta and the Bannermen.
Yes.
So 1959 invasion of Wales.
Do we have to reference that? Of all the things?
From that, they're able to get to the moon in just a couple of hours instead of the 3 days it would normally take to get there.
We also get a Web of Fear reference around about here as well, which makes an awful lot more sense. And also the Tzun get referenced as who were from McIntee's First Frontier book, as they were kind of basically in Area 51.
And we find out what happens to the alternate version of the Master. Remind me, so in Inferno, the Doctor had died, right? Or I'm trying to think what happened to the Doctor in this timeline.
Yeah, because he certainly he isn't around. It's made very clear. Yeah, he's not about. The Master finds Koshe or Koshi, and he's been kind of stranded on Earth, basically kind of like being tortured, isn't he? And he's a prisoner, and he's also down to his final regeneration.
Yep, and his TARDIS was destroyed in the Web of Fear that you mentioned just a bit ago.
And he's in agony. So kind of reminding me a bit of Barusa from Engines of War. It's all very grim and all very sad because I mean he's the kind of this is the pure version of the Master, the one who never kind of went, who took the dark path. Yeah, and it does have an effect on our Master, seeing his alternative self. That's another I'd say another kind of like powerful thing.
I don't know if he's still playing both sides. I think he's intent on, especially after meeting his alternate self, like he's intent on taking these people down, for torturing him, or a version of him. He says he's going to go off to interrogate Barbara about something, but instead he helps her escape and says, "Hey, can you get into this spacesuit?" And he chucks her out the airlock and says, "Try and break in farther down to create a distraction." I wish there would have been a moment when Barbara's, walking on the moon by herself. I wish there was a moment there where she just kind of took it all in, especially since her and Ian got back to Earth in time, for the moon shot and presumably the Mars shot if Ambassadors of Death happened. There just wasn't a moment, where maybe she's walked on the moon before with the first Doctor. Who knows?
Maybe she's also in shock and just generally just trying. Yeah, because I mean, it's been a bit of a day.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Here I am thinking, oh, maybe she'll just sit and take it all in for a second, but she's got other things on her mind.
So one thing that this book does is it really kind of it fills in a bit more of the kind of the detail of the alternative universe from Inferno. Is you find out about Stalin's White Russia.
And here I was thinking it was a drink.
Didn't think that the White Russians were on Stalin's side, but hey ho. And they. Yes, they and kind of a fascist Britain had kind of like divided up Europe, and basically Hitler didn't happen because all the fascism and stuff happened in the UK, and there's a Confederacy of America, and it's all quite. There's also there's a kind of like an Asian Pacific Federation. We find out just more details, and obviously McIntee's having a bit of fun with kind of like playing the Harry Turtledove game. Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm not too sure that it makes much sense, but it just kind of adds a little bit more to it. So I think it's quite it's quite nice to find out a bit more about that world's history.
Barbara's creating a distraction out on the moon. The Master kills or puts Koshé out of his misery, really. Does the humane thing and
does kill him.
Kills him, and then Barbara and the Master at this point go back down to Earth, right? But it's still the infernal Earth.
Yes, and they find that the Brigadier and Ian have managed to kind of have escape. So Ian is now kind of he's now found Butcher and is fighting him. Ian has an opportunity to kill him, but sort of can't bring himself to in the moment. But the Master just rocks up and then just kills Butcher just straight away and mocks Ian.
Ian still is under the impression that Barbara's dead at this point too, right?
Yeah.
So this was, him faced with Barbara's killer, and yet he still refused to take a life. And I also wondered, did we ever see Ian kill anyone in... Like, did he kill any of the Aztecs?
He throws the Aztec champion off, doesn't he? Presumably to his death, off the edge of the temple, doesn't he?
Yeah. So maybe it's not the first. I mean, so presumably he's killed in self-defense, but in this case, he just couldn't do it.
Well, and also he's so emotionally distraught as well, because I mean, he really is put through the ringer in this book. Because I mean, it is, whilst it's a kind of like, as we've said before, whilst it's a unit book, this really is an Ian and Barbara book, particularly an Ian book. I just felt so sorry for him quite often.
And it's complete emotional manipulation by the master too, right? Because the master's really
Yes.
throughout the book kind of playing him like a an instrument almost, and to
Mm.
get the reactions that he wants and to get the motivation that he wants is he's really using Ian. He's not hypnotizing him, but he may as well have done because he's really put him through the ringer, like as you said.
Yeah, and also the master kind of attempts to justify to Ian the fact that he's been lying about Barbara being dead by just sort of saying that look, you're far more effective working in grief than you would have been if you were scared of putting her at risk, and it's chilling logic as well because it kind of yeah, you don't want. I don't know. I didn't want to kind of acknowledge that there is logic in there. There is, and I'm just like, oh, you are just so evil. Yeah, yeah. So
Let's say then it kind of wraps up relatively quickly after that. You
yeah,
get the master destroying the gateway so that they can't cross over anymore.
everybody kind of heads back to kind of like to fast lane. Then the master sort of manages to he tries to kind of he tries to escape again.
They're able to cross over back to the regular Earth either through a combination of
Yes.
the gateway as it's being destroyed, and then also the little jumper device that the master had built from the Day of the Dalek parts. But everyone's able to get to quote unquote the real Earth, and
Yeah.
Kyle is she crosses over too, right? So they're still not quite done,
Yeah.
and she's trying to escape on the submarine because most of that crew had been replaced at this point. So
Yeah.
they have one Polaris sub kind of under their control.
Yeah, it's interesting all the focus on Polaris because the missile system that eventually replaces that in real life is very much an election hot topic
Oh,
as we record this.
huh.
Yes, as the leader of the opposition is very much against the nuclear subs.
So Doctor Who timely as ever.
Uh, yeah, yes,
Um,
yes.
but then they're able to stop the submarine before it leaves the dock. Mike Yates and Harry Sullivan take a like a little boat out to the sub before it starts going underwater, and they open up an emergency hatch, kind of preventing it from sinking. And then the master materializes on there on the ship. His TARDIS turns into like a hatchway in as part of the wall of the submarine, and
Yeah.
tries to escape, but he's cornered. And earlier he kind of palms a little remote device, as he's leaving his TARDIS, and he's able to get it to dematerialize so Unit can't catch it. And this is kind of what I ties into the putting the toys back on the shelf where they belong sort of thing.
Yeah.
He sends his TARDIS back to Devil's End where
Yes.
it'll remain.
Yeah, in the ruined church.
And he gets
Yeah,
taken back into custody. But Marianne Kyle, she escapes. The master's kind of he allows her to escape, right? Because he finds it
yeah,
worse that she's stranded on a world without a home
yes,
as opposed to having any resources.
yeah. Because there's some real malice there. Where it says about she's having to be living as a kind of a fugitive, kind of homeless, no allies, and you kind of think, yeah, a bit like you, though, mate. Hey, yeah, it's nasty.
And then
That's,
the master gets taken into custody, and the doctor and Joe show up at the end, and they say, "Hey, did we miss anything?"
Yes.
And the brigadier says,
Yes.
"Not really." Yeah.
Not really, and then Joe starts telling everyone about Alpha Centauri, or at least in my head she does. But
Yeah, that does line up really nicely, where the brigadier kind of pauses and he says, you didn't miss anything or didn't miss much. I forget the exact line, but if it seems like it took us a long time to recap that one, it's
yes,
because there was a lot going on. It was
yes,
very intricate. You had layers and layers of kind of James Bond plotting, I guess. So, what did you think of it?
I loved it. I kind of felt I would. Yeah, this for me definitely stood up. I kind of think, I mean, there's a lot of continuity, but it doesn't bog it down, I don't think. I mean, I think, even if you never watched a unit story, I think you could probably enjoy it. I mean, certainly you would get a lot more from it, but as I say, it is just a fantastic read, and it just kind of goes along at such a terrific pace, and you've got these kind of brilliant twists, and also it's this interesting mix of genres, because you get all of the kind of the kind of Life on Mars style cop stuff at the start, and it kind of felt real in a way that quite often some of the unit stories don't. I mean, it reminds me a lot, the better, to my mind, unit stories. The Ambassadors of Death, the Inferno. This certainly ticked all the boxes for me. I just thought it was fab.
I enjoyed it as well. Thinking back to the question that Sean asked last month, would this make a good episode of the TV show? I'd say no. I don't think it'd make. I think it would make a good movie in the vein of like a Torchwood 2-hour movie sort of thing. Because it was grittier and, like you said, based more in kind of that real world. It didn't feel so much Doctor Who to me as it did like a Torchwood unit sort of. And I keep saying Torchwood even though they're not mentioned whatsoever in this happened years before they were even invented. But in terms of tone and kind of grittiness and style, that's what it felt like to me. I enjoyed it. It wasn't, and I wouldn't expect it to be on the nose Doctor Who, because it was more of a like you said, almost like a companion piece for Ian and Barbara and Unit. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. There was a whole subplot we forgot to mention too, involving Corporal Bell. So she shows up again, and her brother, I think, is being held hostage, and she's turns into this mole, and she's funneling information to Marianne Kyle's organization. There's so much continuity, but it's referenced in such a way where if you get the reference, it's great, and if you don't, it doesn't detract from the story at all.
Yeah. It's the anti-John Peel, I would say. It's great. It's great.
In terms of how we would rate this, do you want to
go first?
So, real quick, thinking back to The Dark Path, the one that I kind of read on my own extra, and the classic Doctor Who podcast, they both gave that a 9, and I would have given that an 8. And I feel like had they reviewed this one, they would have both given it a 9. And I likewise, I think I would rate this one an 8, and it's a strong 8. And it almost ticks a 9 for me, but there was just a little too much of, I think, over-egging the pudding, in that, like, I felt like, having the big finale on the submarine would have been enough, but that they threw in, the moon base on top of that, that sort of thing, you could have maybe done with half a dozen fewer continuity references and maybe one fewer twists. I guess I'm sort of docking it for being slightly overambitious, but it really did well. I thought so I give it a strong 8.
I wonder how much some of that was due to possible lack of confidence as to how gripping it would be, because of the fact it doesn't have the Doctor in as a draw. But because when this is the only from the novels, at least that I can think of, that goes down the Doctor Light route. There's another Birthright for the New Adventures. That's quite Doctor Light. But when to the extent though where the Doctor is just in it for maybe a couple of pages, if that.
Is that the one that takes place concurrently with is it Iceberg?
Yes. Yeah. So.
How would you rate this one?
How would I rate this one? It's a 9. Yeah, I'm not going to give it. I'm not going to give it a 10, because I think 10 has to be something absolutely spectacular, and I think also possibly maybe it might have been. I could have possibly done without the kind of the Barbara being dead storyline. but that does lead into that brilliant master scene. It's just great because I'm so glad that I enjoyed it because I read it sort of yeah, I've only read it once before, and that was shortly after it came out. And my taste at the time, I've generally been disappointed by revisiting things from that time period because I went, really, I enjoyed this, but yeah, my teenage self was spot on with this one.
It's nice when you can come across the things that hold up after when you revisit them, yeah, later on.
Yeah.
One of the things I really liked about this too were all the just the little world building details in the parallel Earth when the base is under attack. At first, the parallel Earth people think it's like a Primord attack, which would make sense. It must be like a zombie sort of thing. So like details like that, or all the different past unit headquarters getting a mention, including at one point they're on the flying plane from the Troughton stories, and you get the scene where like Ian goes into the Master's TARDIS and he's comparing notes about the differences, and like, oh my gosh, this TARDIS has an armory and the Doctors would never have that, and you get those sort of details which really help, like you said earlier, root this in the real world, or the real Doctor Who world, as it were.
Yeah, because also the Master's TARDIS has these kind of cold noises, and it's compared to the kind of like the warmth of the Doctor's. And also you get all this stuff as well about the Brigadier's past, as you find out, it gets alluded to about his time that he spent in Malaya, as he puts it, early on in his career, and which I think that ties in with what's said in Scales of Injustice as well. So we have kind of world building of the regular Doctor Who world, even though, as you were saying earlier, the Brigadier is possibly slightly poorly served. I mean, the unit regulars, you don't get to see an enormous amount of kind of like in-depth study of them. If you want that, I mean, I think Scales of Injustice is probably the book for you. As you don't, we don't get many glimpses into kind of like the inner workings of Mike's mind or Benton's, apart from his interest in Star Trek. It's just so good.
Yeah, it's really solid. I really enjoyed this one. It's almost a 9 for me, but yeah, it's just there's a couple of bits that where it went a little, but I suppose that's kind of a holdover from the New Adventures days too, where a lot of those books were more violent than.
Yeah, I mean, this is nowhere near as violent as some of the New Adventures. I mean, it's also not as I mean, you're saying about Torchwood. I mean, it's more mature than some of the Torchwood episodes, particularly season 1.
Yeah, it doesn't have that juvenile kind of 14-year-old thinking what an adult show is like, sort of. Yeah,
you do have that in some of the New Adventures. So yes, one of them we've already mentioned in this episode, no less. Hello, Iceberg.
Anything else you want to say about this book before we move on to?
No, it's just great, isn't it?
It is.
That's what, yeah.
Face of the enemy, thumbs up.
Yes, indeed.
Let's move on to listener mail and feedback then. We've got a couple of tweets to talk about.
Oh, cool.
We got a thank you tweet from Sean from the TARDIS Tavern from last month. He mentioned he was very excited to be reading Doctor Who again, so his appearance was well received, so it'd be great to have him on again.
Yeah.
And
yes.
We got a mention from Sixth Pie on Twitter saying they were looking forward to the podcast discussion this month because McIntee's Koshé mythos is one of the most underrated parts of the Wilderness Years. So that was definitely cool to get some more background on the Master.
Yeah.
We got an email from John noting, that we had fun at Amy's expense last month, and we joked that she wasn't much of a reader. He pointed out that she does end up being a successful book writer.
She does, of course, she does. Yes, yeah, writing children's books
after she was trapped in the past. So yeah, there was even a book tie-in published under her name.
It was, yes.
Called Summer Falls, which doesn't have the Doctor, but it does have the Curator as one of the characters before he appeared in the 50th. So,
though also, because she's a model, is it ghostwritten? Back at you, yes.
You can be a successful model, and an author too, I guess.
Yes, you can. You can.
And maybe she would have read more if the doctor didn't steal her reading glasses. So
Yeah, maybe. So maybe we're being most harsh on this Bond.
yeah. But yeah, thank you everyone for sending in your listener feedback. You can do that by reaching us on Twitter or via email at andwbcpodcast. And also be sure to leave us a rating on iTunes. It only takes a couple of minutes, and it would help our podcast show up higher in the search results if someone searches for a Doctor Who podcast. Right now, there are only 2 reviews on there, one of which is mine. so more would be appreciated. If we can, I think, get over 10, we'll start showing up in the main search for Doctor Who. So that would be most helpful.
Yes, please feed the algorithm.
Yes.
So, should we reveal to the good folks what we're thinking of doing for next month?
Sure. So next month, I'm going to go with arguably my favorite Doctor, the Second Doctor, and read a Second Doctor Jamie and Zoe book called The Wheel of Ice by Stephen Baxter for the month of July. Yeah. So this was about 5 years old. It was published back in 2012. It's one of the deluxe books, and it was the first classic novel that was published since the Past Doctor range was discontinued in 2005. So it's the first Past Doctor book that we had after a 7-year gap. So that's pretty cool. And I don't know a whole lot about it other than it's more of a hard sci-fi tale. So think like Robert Heinlein or the sci-fi series The Expanse, or the recent Doctor Who episode Oxygen. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, because Stephen Baxter, his sci-fi does tend to be very much on the sci end of it. It does tend to be quite hard on the science. Yeah, no, should be very good. It's it's definitely something to look forward to.
Right. Well, until next month, I've been Matt in Minnesota.
Chris in South London. Happy reading.
For listening to the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast. You can contact the show and follow us on Twitter at ANDWBCPodcast. Our music is the Doctor Who theme, Swing Jazz version by George C. Music, used with attribution under Creative Commons license. Until next month, happy reading. There's a Marvel Comics writer, and I'm not sure which Marvel Comics writer, but he's under contract, and like every 4 or 5 years when his contract comes up, he keeps saying, I really want to write for Doctor Who. Can you let me do it on the side? And they tell him no. Okay. Remember his name. I'm blanking on his name, but I remember.
Dan Slott.
Maybe. That sounds really familiar.
Because Dan Slott is very public as being a big Doctor Who fan.
That could be him.
And he's the guy who wrote Spider-Man for quite a while.
So do you want to hear his idea for a book?
Yeah. Go on then. Yeah.
He wants to tell us a story that can only happen in comic books. So that
makes sense.
Tell an entire comic.
Oh, okay. Right. I am intrigued. Wow. Yeah. No, that's really cool. Okay. Yeah.
And it would only work in that medium, I think.
Yeah.
There you go. So that could happen someday.